Always Auburn with your host, Tyler Crane.
All right, we're back at you, always Auburn. Wednesday morning, headed into the South Alabama week. We're going to talk a little Auburn football. We're going to stay off of Coach Freeze today. I think I harped enough on Coach Freeze Sunday about my disdain about how he continues to want to impose his need to throw the ball and is ultimately not always receptive to take what the defense gives him. But, like I said, we're going to stay off of that today. That's a topic for a later day. And we're going to talk positive today. We're going to look at the defense. We're going to acknowledge that, hey, the Auburn Tigers are ranked in the top 25, number 24 to be exact, for the first time since November of 2021. So I think that is a huge accomplishment. First time in the Freeze era. Freeze is ranked for the first time at Auburn University. Now, could he have been in previous years? Oh, hold on. Like I said, I'm gonna be a man of my word. We're not gonna bash Freeze today. So, and I'm not a complete hater of Freeze either, but we're gonna stay away from Coach Freeze today. So we're gonna talk about the defense a little bit and the improvements from week 1 to week 2. Now the opponent was definitely different, but there was a lot of improvements. At the end of the day, defense is covering, tackling, rushing the passer, filling gaps, establishing the line of scrimmage, and I think we did better in a lot of those areas from week 1 to week 2. Do we still need to improve in certain areas on the defensive side of the ball? Sure. There's never a perfect game. So that's what makes it all the better anyway. So we're also going to look at the injuries and take a little glimpse outside of Auburn and add in my midweek special, what I like to call the ass of the week. So without further ado, let's talk a little defense. I don't know any accolades as far as like who won SEC Player of the Week or who got acknowledged and as having a good week on the defensive side of the ball throughout the conference, and I don't even know if the team does accolades, weekly accolades, and player recognition. I know they do. I know they grade the defensive players. But we're going to look at the secondary, and probably the best performance I've seen out of our secondary players was Sylvester Smith, number 19, Sly. Sly was all over the place Saturday night. He made tackles. He brought the funk. He was smart. They tried to call targeting on him on that one play, and that ref realized quickly. I mean, it was one of the quickest reviews that got overturned from targeting to not targeting that I've ever seen. So he realized real fast that, hey, this isn't targeting. This was a good tackle, and it was clear when you watch the replay. It was a good tackle. It was a good, hard, physical. What you teach as a defensive coach, how players to tackle. I think he, definitely demonstrated that in that play. Kept his head up. He didn't launch. He just made a good, solid tackle in open field. So shouts out to Sylvester Smith. That wasn't his only play. Like I said, he was all over the place on defense. Made I don't know the exact number of tackles, but he made a huge impact Saturday night, especially in the back end of the defense. Moving down to the linebackers, Xavier Atkins is really starting to come into his own at Auburn. The transfer from LSU, Coach Freeze mentioned him in his press conference earlier this week, and even after the game, he's got a lot of life. Apparently, brings a good good character foundation and just emotional leader to that room, which is what you need out of a linebacker. To tell you the truth, you need somebody who's kind of loud with his actions and someone players can look to, who kind of has a fearless approach. I think all those are great traits of linebackers, and I think we're seeing that with Xavier Atkins. Demarcus Riddick's not far behind. If he's behind, I can't say. He had a good performance as well. Flying around the field, he looks fast. He looks like he's learning. He's kind of coming into his own as well, as far as understanding how to play defense in this league. That it's just not all about being able to get to the football. You have to position yourself, because the players you're going to face, especially once we get into league play and we start playing big time opponents, they're just as fast as you. They're just as athletic as Demarcus Riddick and our players. It really starts to that fine line of understanding football and scheme and listening to your coaches and communicating with your players on the field, and everybody knowing what their job is and doing that job. That's when that really comes into play. And I think Demarcus Riddick is starting to learn that. I'm starting to see that a little bit in these first two games, that he doesn't look like he did last year, where he's really just out there because he's a freak athlete, and we gotta have him out here. It's looking like he's starting to put both those things together and really starting to blossom into a SEC quality linebacker who understands football through the eyes of defense. So linebackers, hey, impressed with that room. I think good things are coming. I mean, you look at the depth. Melendez, they're getting him experience. They're getting him on the field early. He played a lot Saturday night against Ball State, and I'm excited to see more out of him. I saw Diaz get on the field a little bit, number 16, Brian Diaz. Same boat. He might not be as advanced as Melendez. They're both true freshmen, and it seems like Melendez is getting a little more action than Brian Diaz, but I don't think he's far behind. And I think they're building something with these linebackers. DJ Durkin is establishing a good system of rotation and getting them experience, because injuries are going to occur, and it is not a foreign thing in the SEC to see true freshmen have to fill in and get and be big time players in big time games. A linebacker is a big time position. I mean, they're all big time positions on the defensive side of the ball, really. But the linebacker is kind of the quarterback of the defense in many ways. They have to understand what's in front of them, and they have to understand what's behind them. You have dual responsibilities, not just rush the passer, not just make tackles on running plays and fill gaps, but you also have to know how to cover. You also have to know where the flats are. You also have to understand zone defenses. You also have to understand running backs and how to mirror running backs out of the backfield and how to blow plays up. I mean, there's just so much that comes with being a linebacker, as far as being mentally aware of what is going on the football field. So I'm glad to see these young freshmen getting thrust into the fire, if that's the correct terminology for it. I'm glad to see that, because you just never know in this league, and it might be game 7 that you're seeing Brian Diaz and Elijah Melendez having to start and play 40 plays on defense because we are battling injuries, So it's good to get them this experience when you can, and And I think Durkin's going to continue to do it, so I'm excited about that. Defensive line, hey, what a rotation we got. You know, the guys don't look gassed. There's a push that I'm seeing in both games. They're blowing the offensive lineman off the ball. And Keldrick Faulk setting himself up to be one of the greatest defensive linemen at Auburn, probably. Going to enter the NFL as a high draft pick. And it's just great to see. So the defense looked a lot better. Now, we were playing Ball State, and like I have mentioned, I think they're the worst team we're going to play this year. I don't really just think that. I kind of know that, to tell you the truth. So I'm expecting this week to be a little more challenging for the defense because people who know football don't understand that Ball State and South Alabama are a lot different. Ball State is a school from Indiana. Now, do they have good football in Indiana? Of course. But it's a school from Indiana that's never really done anything on the football field. Not sure if they've done anything athletically. South Alabama comes from a football glorified area, the state of Alabama. South Alabama is located in Mobile, not far from Mississippi, not far from New Orleans, Louisiana, not far from your panhandle of Florida, and not far from the rest of Alabama, going into Montgomery and even Birmingham. So it sits in a prime location to get good football talent. A lot of the players that, for whatever reason, cannot find their way into Auburn or find their way into Alabama end up at places like South Alabama, Troy, and UAB. And the talent gap is really not that different. Now, is the intelligence, the grades, the opportunity, the favor, sometimes things just got to go your way as a high school athlete. So you got to have coaches that you got to come from a school where you got coaches who got relationships with D1 scouts and you need to come from a school that has a history of players going to this school and relationships. I mean, there's stories for days about how kids have been overlooked and just not heard about because it's such a big pool of talent in these surrounding areas. And so a lot of those players end up going to schools like South Alabama and Troy and UAB. So I think we're in store for a big, tough task Saturday morning. It's an early kickoff. Which Auburn does not have a very good track record in these early kickoff games. Just saying. And Coach Freese has already talked about like in the Baylor game, already talked about how the energy wasn't where it was supposed to be headed into the game. That he didn't know if we had hit like a wall or weren't ready to play or whatever, So 11:45, homecoming, South Alabama. You got Oklahoma next week. Jackson Arnold's homecoming. It's on the road. There's a lot of things stirring in that pot to make these young players and even these coaches look ahead and not focus at the task at hand. And I think that's where we get in trouble, to tell you the truth. And I hope I'm wrong. But South Alabama's going to give Auburn everything they got. And it's going to start on their offensive side of the ball. Their offensive coordinator is Bobby Petrino. If anybody knows anything about SEC football, about offensive football, Bobby Petrino is an offensive guru, quarterback coach. He had great offensive teams at Louisville when he was there. We can remember him at Arkansas, having great offenses. I think he coached in the NFL at the Falcons. Wasn't he the offensive coordinator there? You just don't get to the NFL as an offensive coordinator. I don't care what level, and not know the field. Not know a good scheme. Not know how to win games on the offensive side of the ball. You just don't. It's in the science. So am I concerned? To tell you the truth, I'm concerned every week that ever since we lost to New Mexico State, I get concerned going into every week about Auburn football. I wish I could say I didn't, but until the tide changes, and I think it's on the way to changing, but there's always that thought that creeps in that, hey, are we really back? And I don't think we know yet. We had a good win against Baylor, and we came home and played the sorriest team in college football. So I don't think we know yet. I think as the season goes along, we're going to find out a lot about ourselves. And I think we're going to find out a lot about ourselves not next week in Norman, which I do think we will then too. But I think it starts this week at homecoming in Jordan-Hare at 11 o'clock in the morning against South Alabama, who it would make their season to come down to Jordan-Hare Stadium and bust the Auburn Tigers, knock them off their high horse. Sure, a lot of these players have chips on their shoulders about not getting into schools like Auburn. So we're going to get everything they got. You can believe that. So let's move on to the injuries. I think Champ's still dealing with the thumb. Saw something on Instagram. He was getting surgery, some stitches in his thumb. And like I've mentioned, he could probably get it wrapped up, but let's get him healthy. I don't think we lack on the defense, especially in the defensive backfield. That was another point I meant to bring up too about the defensive backfield with the defensive backs and specifically our corners. Do I think it's a bad thing? No, but do I think there is any fall off? And I'm really starting to get more convinced after I've seen missed tackles from Jay Crawford in the Baylor game and blow coverage on a deep ball that probably should have been a touchdown on Ball State's first drive of the game if they had a quarterback who could put some air under the ball and hit a wide open receiver who beat the defense. Kay and Lee got dusted the first play of the game. And I'm just not seeing these mistakes out of Rayon Strader and Rayshawn Pleasant when they hit the field. I don't know. It's eventually gonna have to be addressed, to tell you the truth. And it's not gonna be addressed by just showing it's going to show itself pretty much. And people are going to say, okay, Rayon Strader and Rayshawn Pleasant are our two best corners. They need to be on the field more than Kay and Lee and Jay Crawford. I'm starting to believe that. And could be wrong. Hey, it's my opinion. But I'm starting to believe that, and I think it's eventually going to show itself on film. And I wouldn't be surprised by the end of the season if you're not seeing 13 and 14 on the edges, getting the majority of the snaps, the big plays, covering the big-time receivers. And when they get tired, then Kay and Lee and Jay Crawford come in the game. Just saying. I'm seeing that already. So, injuries. Back to the injuries. Darrell Robinson woke up with blood on his thigh. Had to go to the hospital, get it removed. And that's concerning in the sense that Damari's already nicked up. You really don't want him to have to go Saturday. And so now we're down to Omar Mapson and Jeremiah Cobb. Omar Mapson, true freshman. Coach Freeze talks about the concerns he has about pass blocking. So there's going to be a lot of growing up, especially with Omar Mapson this week and possibly next week, because who knows how long Darrell Robinson is going to be out with this injury, and who really knows. A shoulder is a tough injury to just shake off and jump right back out there. You can re-injure that shoulder very easily. So who really knows when Damari is going to be 100% ready to go, if he even gets back to 100% throughout the year? Because the more you go out there and take hits off that shoulder, the longer period of time it takes to fully recover from that type of injury. So, hey, Omar Mapson, it might be your time to shine, buddy. Maybe we'll get to see Alvin Henderson a little bit Saturday. Justin Jones, 35, senior, been in the program a long time. He's probably gonna see the field some. So running back's a little bit of concern with the injuries, and I think that's it with the injuries. Champ, Damari, and Darrell. I hadn't seen anything else on the injury side of the ball. And we'll get a little bit more into the pregame and going through South Alabama's offense in the next video, in the pregame video going into South Alabama. But I think these guys, they're gonna have to show up. They're going to have to show up, play football, and as bad as you want to look towards the Oklahoma game, you can't do that. It's about going 1-0 this week. And I don't even know if it's the players, to tell you the truth. I'm more worried about the coaches trying to cheat this week, if that makes any sense. Just get by with the win. Just get by with the win. Let's get to Oklahoma. Let's start preparing. Let's look at Mateer and all that. But you got to get out of Jordan-Hare Saturday with a win, because if you don't, man, how's that going to look? So let's move on to outside of Auburn to conclude this edition of Always Auburn. And I got a good one. I got some good ones for you this week. And just to put some clarity on this, I'm not picking on anybody. If it doesn't matter that where these players are from, none of that. If Auburn players do some stupid stuff, hey, they're gonna go right into this segment as well. We're not exempt from doing dumb things, and not getting put on blast about it. So, but let's get into not the ass of the week, but the asses of the week. They are the Ass Brothers. Big brother Jalen Carter from the Philadelphia Eagles and little brother Brendan Bett from the Florida Gators. Both decided, now they're not brothers, but they acted in a way that you could categorize their actions as brotherly actions. So both of them took it upon themselves, knowing that the cameras are on them and you can't hide anything from cameras in the sports world nowadays. It started Thursday night in the NFL opener when Jalen Carter decided to spit on Dak Prescott. Spit, like actually spit. And then it carried on to Saturday, and in the midst of frustration because the Florida Gators were en route to lose to, I guess, could be considered a rival. It's probably a rival now. The South Florida Bulls. Brendan Bett decided to do the same thing to a South Florida player and spit on him. Now, were these two man and young man antagonized to perform such an act? Maybe. Probably. I wouldn't be surprised. But does that make it appropriate? Absolutely not. That is the greatest form of disrespect that a human being can do to another human being, is to spit on them. And I talked about it last week with Tyler Scott. I'm almost starting to wonder, like, it really bewilders me in a way. Like, okay, Tyler Scott, like, again, I'm no law enforcement. Could care less about that, to tell you the truth. But I do understand the law, and I have been in a courtroom before, and I have been around people who have been charged with crimes before. And just like last week, I know taking someone from somebody by the use of force would be considered strong arm robbery. I also know that spitting on someone is considered assault. So, is there something in the Constitution that I'm not aware of that says that football players are exempt from being prosecuted for breaking the law? I feel like it's a legitimate question. I mean, you're still in the United States. Just because you're on a football field and you're wearing a football jersey and you have on football pads, does that make it not illegal to spit on somebody? Because I know if I walk down the street and a stranger said, "Hey, Tyler, you look like a you know what," and I then reacted by spitting on this person, and they wanted to press charges on me for this, and this was on camera, and there was evidence that I spit on this person, then I believe I would probably be arrested for assault and don't have much defense to not be convicted of it. So it's just baffling to me. I don't understand how this doesn't come up. You know, but, drop something in the comments if you know more about. Maybe there's something in maybe in the NFL there's something in the contracts that, like, you can't be persecuted for doing an act to someone on a football field. Maybe there's something in the NCAA guidelines that say you can't be persecuted for doing something to another person on the football field. Maybe because it's a violent game. I don't know. It's just baffling to me. I don't see how these players aren't held accountable as a citizen of the United States to uphold the law, regardless if they're on the football field or not. So, anyways, both players apologized to Dak and the South Florida offensive lineman, I want to say. Both players made a public apology. I'm sure that Jalen Carter got fined. I don't know if the other young man got fined or benched or anything along those lines. But, hey, Jalen Carter and Brendan Bett, former Georgia Bulldog Jalen Carter and Florida Gator Brendan Bett, you are the asses, the ass brothers of the week. And we're not going to end the show about the ass brothers, so we're going to look ahead to what I look at as a big weekend in college football. I'm excited to see the Crimson Tide go against the Wisconsin Badgers. I'm also excited for the big one in the SEC, Tennessee versus Georgia and Florida. You get a chance to redeem yourself this weekend against the LSU Tigers, who are on a hot roll after beating Clemson. And it looks like Brian Kelly might be figuring it out. Can the Florida Gators put kind of a block up that baffles Brian Kelly a little more and makes him wonder what he's doing wrong? I'm not sure if they can. I kind of got a feeling that this might be all she wrote with Napier at Florida. Then again, I thought that last year. But this loss to South Florida and then this stretch of games that they have coming up that starts with LSU and entering SEC play, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. There's some big expectations at Florida, and really they're only greater now because of the success that the Gators had at the end of the last season going into this season. And now it's like you hit this wall and lose to somebody at home that you shouldn't have lost to. It's going to be tough for Napier, to say the least. So, hey, hopefully Wisconsin and Tennessee will show up. Makes it oh so sweet when the Tide and the Georgia Bulldogs struggle. So, that's what I got for y'all today. Hope you enjoyed the show. We'll get back at you pregame for the South Alabama game. I hope everybody has a good rest of their week. And war damn Eagle in this bitch.